Linda Heath. I'm a professor of psychology and the director of peace studies at Loyola University, Chicago. And the research that I'm presenting today is really at its beginning stages. I've developed this model of peace that relies on a sense of, or a concept called global cohesion. One of the things that I'm doing in developing this model is to borrow from the concept that's throughout peace psychology and the study of peace of the difference between negative peace and positive peace. Put very simply, negative, and I'm sure you all know this, negative peace refers to stopping wars, violence. Positive peace, on the other hand, is creating fundamental conditions that take away the need for war or violence. So instead of just let's go put out the hot spots around the world, let's run around slapping Band-Aids on everything, let's put something in place that can actually obviate the need for violence in the first place. The positive peace model that I've put forth has two basic parts. First of all, there's a sense that basic needs have to be met in order for positive peace to exist. People have to have enough food, water. Water, I keep hearing, is going to be the battleground of the future. Security, things like that go under the basic needs met. But then another aspect of that is global cohesion, this construct that I'm trying to test with this model. Now, basic needs met is not really the province of psychology. As a psychologist, I like to think everything is the province of psychology, but there are a few things that I will see go to other areas. In order to get water, to get security, to get food, distribution, things like that, accomplishing that goal really relies on technological advances, international agreements, economic structuring, things that are pretty much beyond the pale of psychology. So other folks out there need to take care of that part of the equation. But in order for that to happen, however, we must first, I'm arguing, or I'm testing the hypothesis, that in order for these basic needs to be met, in order for there to be the financing and the will and the cooperation and the resources directed toward the technology, in order for all of those things to happen, you first have to have a sense of global cohesion. Now, I'm borrowing from the sociology literature, the sense of social cohesion. It's an old standard in sociology. And social cohesion, people actually are still arguing about the definition of that in sociology. But it's some sort of group cohesion. Some people argue it only exists at a neighborhood level. Other people argue, no, it's a national level, or it could be a religious group level, or whatever. But it's a sense of belonging and identity, that you feel a kinship, you feel a responsibility, you feel a concern for other people who are in this group. And the idea I'm testing here is that in order for the political will, the cooperation, the financing, all of those things, to get the basic needs met, you first have to have this sense of cohesion at a global level. The things that happen on the other side of the planet really are of your concern, and really do, you do have a responsibility for those things. So it's also conceptually similar to the sense of common humanity, which has been used elsewhere in the literature. So global cohesion relies on attitudes, beliefs, values. This is where psychology intersects. And the idea I'm playing with is that attitudes, I like my little gear picture, never show me a PowerPoint I didn't like. That attitudes start out, that the attitudes actually drive your sense of global cohesion, and that global cohesion then in turn drives basic needs met. That you're not going to get basic needs being met unless you have this sense of responsibility and concern and caring for people in other parts of the world. The positive peace model has three basic levels, that this model that I'm working on developing. At the most basic level are 16 attitudes and values that are conducive to peace that I've pulled from literature, from various other formulations on peace, sort of the, as Betty Reardon was saying, when you pull back and you take the big view and you say, okay, what's going on here? I'm operating at that view here. The middle level then says that these 16 values and attitudes feed into these two basic components: basic needs met and global cohesion, and that when those two pieces are together, that drives or creates a state of positive peace. This, I don't know if you can read this, but this outlines some, and I don't know if you can read it on the PowerPoint, but things like the underlying values and attitudes are things like fairness, trust, simplicity, low perceived threat, hope, group orientation, fairness, social justice, valuing diversity, open-mindedness, ecological responsibility, low reactivity to threat, low egotism, sense of personal responsibility for others, and long-range view. So I'm sure you could add your own favorites. Feel free to send me an email. We're still working on this. So the overarching ideas behind the positive peace model is that meeting basic needs is a proximal cause of positive peace. You have to have the water, the food, the security, those things. But that meeting basic needs, and that meeting basic needs is primarily technological, economical, political. But in order for that to happen, the impetus for putting that in place is this sense of global cohesion, which is based primarily on values and attitudes. How might a sense of global cohesion form? Culture, personality factors, life experiences, mass media, new media. This is one of the first pieces I'm trying to untangle here. What happens when you can hop on Facebook and talk to somebody in Pakistan who's just endured floods? What happens when you have on-the-spot reporting from people who are doing citizen journalism and reporting on what's going on in Iran? Does that increase the sense of global cohesion? This new media is the internet, blogging, all of that technology that we didn't even have 15 years ago. Is that going to make us feel more like a small, one big family? Or, and this is where, so at first I was very optimistic. I was like, right, we're onto it, we've got the technology. But then as I pondered it, I became concerned that the new media also allows you to select a great deal what you want to be exposed to. And so if you're xenophobic, you can only select media from other people who think just like you, and you can only expose yourself to information that presents other people in very negative ways. And so my current working hypothesis is that the new media might actually push people more to the ends, that it might increase the sense of global cohesion among people who are inclined that way initially, but that it might actually decrease, because if you're watching television news, you don't really get to filter out the picture of the poor little starving kid or the kid in the flood or whatever. Even if you are fairly negatively preordained toward that person to begin with. But on the internet, you can choose which sites to go to, and you can avoid ever being exposed to those things. So I then was depressed for a few weeks after it occurred to me that the new media might not be a clear blessing, that it might actually work in both directions. How could we foster a sense of global cohesion? Mass media might be one avenue, because it can provide you information about the whole world, the world outside of your immediate door. Citizen journalism. The mainstream media are now using more and more reports from people on the scene who are sending in videos or pictures they've taken with their camera or with their telephone, or doing interviews with them over their cell phone, all sorts of things. So the ultimate question is whether global cohesion is a valid and useful construct, and if so, can we increase it? Today, the data I'm going to talk about is global cohesion related to media use, and is it also related to personal experiences with people from other cultures? This was an online survey. Students at Loyola University of Chicago who were an introduction to psychology took it for extra credit. The survey responses were anonymous. The survey includes culture of peace factors, global cohesion, media use, and several other kinds of information, including personal international exposure. 291 Loyola undergrads. The global cohesion scale was originally 20 items. 2 of them didn't seem to fit. We found that Chromebox alpha went up significantly when we got rid of those 2 items. Some of the examples of items are things that happen on the other side of the planet, affect my life. I think of myself as a citizen of the earth. The saying, I am my brother's keeper, is true. Some of the items were worded negatively. People should devote their energies to solving problems in their own backyard rather than further away. Every nation should be responsible for taking care of its own citizens. The 2 items that did not fit were every nation should be responsible for taking care of its own citizens. In hindsight, I'm thinking that's probably like, well, yeah, nations should take care of their citizens. So, it might have just not had enough spread on it to be a good item. Wealthy nations need to teach other nations how to emulate them so they can be wealthy too. Could be the Loyola students don't know what emulate means. I don't know. So we reverse coded these things, came up with a scale of global cohesion that's just an additive scale. We also surveyed them about the amount of time they spent on TV, radio, all those various kinds of media. Only 3 significant relationships came out, so it doesn't seem to be a strong personal effect, a strong broad-based media effect. There could be an interaction hiding in here. That's the next step I'm going to look at. Total radio use, surprisingly, was highly correlated with a high sense of global cohesion. So the more radio, the higher your sense that you're connected to people around the world. Gaming, playing internet games and War of the Worlds or whatever it is they're playing on games, was negatively related. Kids who spent more time playing lots of those games had lower scores on global cohesion. And the item, how often do you read, watch, or listen to news about things that are happening in other countries, was again positively related. As we would expect, I would have been really worried if that one wasn't it. High exposure, high global cohesion. Right now we're just looking at correlations. We don't really have any causal, we're not teasing anything out or making any causal claims. Global cohesion, personal experiences. How often do you have face-to-face conversations, at least 5 minutes, with someone not born in the U.S.? So we wanted to get rid of, I buy my coffee from someone who wasn't born in the U.S. And that was a significant correlation. Frequent conversations were related to high global cohesion. Have you ever traveled or lived abroad? And that was a significant effect. Having a passport didn't work because they almost all had passports. And intending to study abroad wasn't related because they almost all intended to study abroad, so those items didn't work. Women had significantly higher scores on the global cohesion scale than men did. So conclusions. Global cohesion scale does not correlate with most gross measures of media use. It could be that the kind of media the undergrads are watching is not the kind that presents worldwide information, unless it's when Steve Irwin, the guy in Australia, died, some stingray stung him. I walked into class 5 minutes later, all the students already knew about it. So it could be that they're very tuned in and they're getting news, but it's sort of the People magazine kind of news. It's not what's going on in the world politically or in terms of natural disasters or things. Another possibility is that they're paying attention to the media, but it's not presented in a way that either increases or decreases a sense of global cohesion. It just somehow flows over them. And I'm sure there are a lot of other possibilities. We're going to wait for questions until the end.